Huge changes are coming, and third base coach Louis Rivera was the first domino to fall. He just took his retirement after 11 years with the team. We're not sure of the reason. Maybe he's just done with baseball, and that's good for him. I mean, he had a great coaching career. Shout out to Louis Rivera. But a lot of changes are set to follow for the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Got some more news to bring to you guys. Today, Louis Rivera announced his retirement. Congratulations on a wonderful career as a player and as a coach with the Toronto Blue Jays. He was there for 11 seasons as a third base coach, did a phenomenal job. He was an integral part in some of those 2015, 2016 teams, and just an overall great character by all accounts. And someone that really modeled Blue Jays culture back in the day. But now we don't know the reason why he's taking his retirement. Maybe he just wants to step away from the game, and he's a lifer. He's been in it ever since he's been a teenager. So shout out to him yet again on a wonderful career. And Nick, I'm just curious as to what's going to follow for this Toronto Blue Jay team. Are there going to be more coaches maybe taking time away from baseball? Are there going to be more coaches being let go by Blue Jays front office? Are there going to be players set to follow? But we truly don't know because the season just ended yesterday. But it's very interesting to think about, and you got to think that this was predetermined for Louis, especially the way that this season played out.
Yeah, people are making jokes that, the Bo Bichette running through a stop sign was his last straw to retirement. But all seriousness and all jokes aside, very, very good for Louis Rivera. And I know a lot of Jays fans out there have been watching Louis Rivera for, most of their life or a lot of their life. So he is retiring, so the Jays need a new third base coach. And I think, the baseball, personal stuff aside, I think it might be good for the team to, get some new faces in there. And he did more than just a third base coach. He was a fielding coach. He didn't really do much with hitting, but he was with the players a lot, so I'm sure that a lot, Bo Bichette, he worked with Bo Bichette vigorously to get his defense to where it is today, so we have to give him a shout out and credits for that. But it goes to show that, predetermined or not, changes are absolutely coming, and this is, like you said, the first domino to fall in what's going to be a crazy offseason. And we also have some more news. But any quick thoughts on the Louis Rivera thing? Realistically, not a huge deal, but I think it's a lot bigger of a deal for the players that are on the field every day than it is for us just watching him, send people home from third base.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could be a much bigger
Yeah,
deal than than we both think, Nick. And yeah, you touched on it there. He's not just the third base coach waving his arm around or holding up the stop sign. He's someone that works with those infielders day in, day out, and he's there getting in their early work. He's hitting them fungos. He's
every
out
day,
there on the
every day.
field for hours at a time, every single day, working on his craft, working on these players' craft, and he was a big reason why we saw Bo Bichette take a step forward defensively this year. He is a big reason why Matt Chapman kept up his defensive acumen at third base. He keeps these guys sharp. Vladdy won a gold glove last year. Louis Rivera worked hand in hand with him as well. And, we see the impact that a guy like that can have on the clubhouse. Everyone seems to gravitate towards him. Everyone seems to love Louis Rivera. And you only hear Buck and Dan Shulman say nice things about him because he seems like a great guy. Unfortunately, we didn't get to cross paths with him as we started doing this here, Nick. But yeah, it seems like a great guy. And I'm sure it's going to be a big loss for this Blue Jay team. But yeah, fresh faces after a season like this definitely can hurt, and I'm sure he won't be the only one that needs a replacement by next season.
Yeah, it might be a sign of what's to come. And like you said, I hope it's not the only replacement. I hope it isn't the big change that we're going to be looking back at in a couple weeks. And whether you liked his actual third base ability, it was questionable at times. He's a great human being, so congratulations to him. Now, Peter, we have a couple of interesting things to go over and kind of highlighting into the future of what not only this offseason, but of course into regular season as well. So this was an interesting quote by the Rogers Board of Directors. So the Blue Jays raised their payroll by $40 million in this year, as we all know, but won 3 fewer games and got swept out of the playoffs. I think it's pretty unlikely that Rogers Board of Directors just shrugs and says that's baseball for you. So Peter, I think it's pretty unlikely as well. Moves seem to be coming. Obviously, the Rogers board of director didn't say this, but you can kind of predict about what they're thinking right now in their, I guess, boardroom, their clubhouse if they have one. You're looking at the payrolls of the postseason teams. We were ninth, and this is a pretty high number, and we're right up there with the top teams. I think and this is kind of alluding to it, Peter, I think some major changes are going to be coming. Whether they're going to cut pay, I doubt. Whether they're going to go out and spend more in a free agent, a Shohei Ohtani type player, that's also very, very possible. I don't know, but what I do know is that it makes a very, very good point here, and this is kind of trending. There's no way that they sit back again, and we discussed this in yesterday's live stream. With the amount of money they're spending, something needs to change, and maybe this is a sign that they're going to change the coaching staff, maybe even Ross Atkins. Who knows what this is really alluding to, but it's a very, very good point when you're thinking about it from the Rodgers board of directors perspective. It kind of changes things a little bit because they cannot be happy with what they've seen from, especially with no revenue for a home playoff game this year.
Yeah, no, and another way we can look at it is that maybe they might go in the opposite direction. Maybe they might say, yeah, this core is just not what we think it is. We don't have the belief in this team to shell out this enormous amount of money every offseason. So maybe they will cut costs. Maybe they won't re-sign any of the impending free agents. Maybe they're just going to call up a bunch of rookies and let them
Hope
play.
not.
And I think that's a strong possibility that Aurelvis Martinez starts the year in the majors. I think Addison Barger has a good chance. Davis Schneider is probably going to be on the active roster next year to start the season as well. So, I mean, there are avenues for them to cut costs and then in some areas and then maybe spend in other areas, like signing a big time free agent like a Cody Bellinger or someone of that nature. I mean, there are ways around it, but I don't see them shelling out even more money, especially if the team is going to stay pretty much the same. It just wouldn't make sense for them because their patience seems to be running thin and their belief seems to be non-existent in this group. So I don't know. I don't know what's next to come here, but I can't see a world where they spend $100 million this offseason and fall flat on their faces again. It just wouldn't make sense for Rodgers, and they're gonna want to probably hone in their spending a little bit, especially after the failure over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and there's two ways you can look at it. You either look at it as if what you just said, and they try to tone it back a little bit, or at the very least, let their young guys play up and make a decent signing, or they make one more signing as kind of a last attempt with this core and then go for it, which is also possible. But like you said, there's not many great free agents out there in this free agent market. You have Cody Bellinger, and this is something we'll discuss throughout the length of the offseason, but we'll get a clearer idea. And I don't think that they're going to cut their spending crazily. It's just not really usually what they do, especially with the amount of money they're making off of their fans and their crazy ticket prices. So I hope they go out and make a big splash. Ultimately, I said this in our live stream yesterday, the starting rotation is going to be essentially the same. The bullpen will be essentially the same, especially if you retain Jordan Hicks. So the foundation is there, but the issue has and will always be, until they change our minds, the hitters, and we need to, Vladdy to make internal improvements, Bo Bichette to make internal improvements, and hopefully we can get one more bat to complement that. But Peter, one quick thing here, and you can touch on this before we wrap up. Let's touch on a couple of the guys that will most likely be starting. And Addison Barger and David Schneider both need to start next season with the Major League team. Aurelvis Martinez should follow in too. You can't keep signing veteran free agents. Look at Houston, Tampa, Los Angeles. They all have valuable rookies, contribute, and are elite. Very, very good point. Me personally, I would lean towards going with Aurelvis and David Schneider and let Barger develop a little bit more, especially coming off his injury where he wasn't super sharp coming back from his injury, whereas Aurelvis has been tearing up for a while. Spring training will obviously dictate this a lot more than anything, but Peter, it's a good point. A lot of these high, echelon teams, and we can't really be included in that the past few years, have a lot of internal. We just saw Royce Lewis go out there and, he got called up. He only played 60 games in the regular season. He won them a playoff game. So I don't know. Let the young guys play a little bit. You can't, that doesn't mean you need to find a healthy mix. It doesn't mean you shouldn't sign any veterans. Kevin Kiermaier, maybe bring him back in alongside Aurelvis Martinez, let Chapman walk, but there needs to be a mix, and this is going to be the story of the offseason. But any quick thoughts to kind of jumpstart this offseason and what's literally day one of the Blue Jays offseason?
Yeah, well, if you pull up that screenshot for me again, Nick, I mean, you're going to see that those three teams mentioned over there are pretty much outliers, and there's a reason why they're at the top of the standings year in, year out. It's because their farm systems and their developmental teams are just amazing all the time, and whoever their scouts are, whoever their coaches are in the minor leagues, they're big time, and there's a reason why they keep churning out prospects that maybe are not ranked and then somehow make a huge impact at the major leagues. So it's a lot easier said than done. We look at those three teams and they make it look easy, but it's like clockwork for them. The Blue Jays haven't been doing that over the course of the past few seasons here, and they haven't been a team that has really relied on their rookies, but I think now is the time. I think Arovis Martinez is ready to make that jump. And like you said, there's got to be a mix as well. You can't just go all out youth movement. It doesn't make sense to totally blow this team up. I know we overreacted yesterday
As we
and
should
a
have.
little bit today as well, as we should have. I mean, we're disappointed and we're frustrated. We want results, but they don't happen overnight. But yeah, you can't blow this team up because we got to remember that Vladdy's only 24, Bo is only 25, and they're still growing as players. But at the same time, you don't want them to price themselves out of Toronto with their good play here. So yeah, you got to surround them with enough talent. You got to surround them with a good mix of young potential star players and veterans that can make a big impact, not aging veterans that are going to dwindle down towards the stretch of the season like some of ours did this year. So I want to see some changes. I want to see some new faces come up in the coaching staff, in the players, and I'm already kicking it into gear, man. I'm already ready for next season to start. My gears are turning up there. I want to see some changes here made by the Blue Jays, and I think ultimately there will be changes. It's hard right now for me to predict what kind of changes, just because there's so much uncertainty surrounding the situation right now.
Yeah, and like we said, the first domino kind of fell today. Whether that's a sign of bigger things to come, who knows? But I want to see the young guys play. And if you checked out our video earlier today, like John Schneider said on Vladimir, like it's all about the little things. And Vladimir Jr. is one guy who needs to lock in on the little things. You can't be getting picked off in a playoff game. So not only do we need, to get the young guys up, we need the guys who are already there, like you mentioned, to lock it in a lot more, which is something that we're going to be, bashing over and over again. But that'll wrap up the video. Thank you guys for watching. We'll have you covered with every bit of news that drops because it's going to start, dropping like crazy before, December. And December will be here before, last offseason flew, and this one will too. So thank you guys for your support. It means the world. We'll see you guys tomorrow.